Hey everyone, thanks for joining me today. I'm going to talk about some family camping tips. We're heading into spring and summer, so now's the time to start thinking about getting outdoors a bit more. And I have Mary Beth joining me, so thanks for joining.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
So tell me about maybe the last experience you had camping with your kids and their ages, just to give our listeners a bit of an idea of, that experience and what it looked like.
Yeah, sure. So last summer, we spent it was a long weekend, and we spent a full weekend doing camping, but then also some day hikes out in the Black Hills here in South Dakota. And so that was their first. We do a lot of camping around our Pier area and around Gettysburg where we live. A lot oftentimes with friends at different campgrounds. But this was their first experience actually staying out very far from home and then going to a trailhead and completing an entire trail. So that was their first big experience.
Oh, good. And what would you describe your camping style as for people who are listening? Because there's so many different variations of camping.
Right. So single mom, so budget's always always a
Yeah.
big thing. So we don't have extremely fancy gear. And by the way, I have four sons. The two sons that have really been experiencing a lot of these hiking trips and stuff with me are 12 and now 8. Actually, my 12-year-old just turned 13 today. So 13 and 8.
Okay.
Um, so we're very laid back. We don't have a lot of fancy equipment. I have an old Chevy truck that we drive all the way out there. We haul way too much firewood, way too much food, bikes, my dog, the whole 9 yards. So we also I cook everything over the fire in cast iron skillets, and kind of like how my mom and dad taught us growing up, and we just sleep in a tent. We're hoping to upgrade to the boys having inflatable mats this summer. That's one of our goals. But what we usually use are yoga mats, actually.
Okay.
um, and so, yeah, we just go out there. We're very relaxed and just have fun and experience it all. I want them to experience the actual, the roughing it part. And
Right.
we like to stay pretty easy and simple and low tech.
Yeah, exactly. So are these like in state parks where you have to make a reservation for the campsite, or how does that work a little bit?
Yeah, so South Dakota is pretty nice. They have some that are first come first serve, and then they have some that you do make reservations. One kind of a blessing that came out of the pandemic is people really started getting back to the camping and the outdoors part of life, which is really good. I really feel like people need to get back in touch with that if that's something that they're into. Downside is you have to make reservations pretty early. So yeah, we tend to go to Custer State Park here in South Dakota. Has a lot of really good hiking trails, and so that's typically where I tend to gravitate towards, especially with my kids. So it's just one of the state parks, one of the private campgrounds that are within the state park.
That's nice. And that's the state park I know. Isn't it the one with all the buffalo?
Mhm. Yep.
So have you had encounters with buffalo at the campsite, or is it kind of like different parts of the park?
That's really in different parts of the park. So, fun fact, when I was married, we actually raised bison. So, I would just probably utilize the same things that I did back then, just, make distance, get away. Don't go try to pet the, bison.
Right, right, exactly. Don't be a stupid human and like think they're a stuffed animal or something. It
No, they are
always
not.
blows my mind when I see those videos too. I don't know. I guess maybe the same thing. I was raised pre-internet, pre-cell phone. You were taught to respect nature. It can hurt you.
Yeah, especially, I mean, getting in between a mama and a baby, anything is a really bad idea. So, don't do that. Wildlife needs to be respected and keep your distance.
Right. Well, now that the boys are a little bit older, do you include them in like the planning and the meals, and what are some tips around that?
I do. So, especially this summer, they are ready to go for their very first backpacking trip. So that was their part of their birthday presents this year is they each got like actual backpacks that have the water reservoir and, the waist belt so we can keep the weight off their shoulders a little bit. So they're always in on, especially now that they'll actually be eating backpacking food, I'm going to let them pick out their own meals, and they're, I know what trail I want to take them on. I want to take them on Little Devil's Tower and Black Elk Peak Trail. It's a very manageable. It's about 6.9 or 7.2 miles, depending on which path you kind of take. So I already had that picked out because there's a couple really good spots in there to explore. And I figure over a course of 3 days, we can go slow enough without making it too hard on them. And we're going to go in June before it's too hot. But as far as like, I'm going to let them help me pick out where we set up our tent and, that type of stuff. When we do camping where we actually make fires, they're in charge of helping me gather supplies for that, like kindling and pine needles and whatnot. They do help with the food prep. We keep it pretty simple when we're camping, their favorite meal every time we go in the morning is sausage and hash browns and eggs. I mean, it's like absolutely their favorite meal. So they help with that. So they just really love being a part of that. And I also like being able to instruct them on those little things that you need to keep in mind. Like, hey, this is a good place to pitch a tent, but is it on a little bit of a hill? How do you think that might feel? So just getting them the opportunity to kind of make some of their own decisions, but kind of coaching them along so we're not rolling off of our sleeping bags.
Yeah. No, those are all great. So, are they allowed to, do they have cell phones? I know kids younger and younger now are getting cell phones. So are there kind of parameters around your tech time, or how do you manage that?
So my ex-husband, which is my 12 and my 8-year-old's dad, he did purchase a cell phone for our 12-year-old. I typically wait till about 14 before my kids get a cell phone. That's driving age here in South Dakota, and they just get a simple flip phone. So out when we're backpacking, camping, whatever, hiking, other than like taking pictures or recording videos, which my 13-year-old loves to do, I don't really allow anything. The good thing is that you don't really have service out there, and he's not on social media anyway. But it's like you're not going to be texting friends, you're not going to be playing games, you're not going to be doing anything else. We are being, we're immersing ourselves in the outdoors for a reason. So that's kind of how we do that when we're out there. So
No, that's smart. I think that's great because I think even for myself, I enjoy just like disconnecting, but it's like I think if you grew up before the cell phones, we have a different perspective. So I always question like, kids like my niece, she's never not known her parents to have a cell phone or play video games or whatever. So it's just a
right,
different perspective.
it is. And that's one of my favorite things about being out there is not having any service, because I am, I always have my cell phone, and then I also have my work cell phone because of my job. And I have a lot of people that lean on me for support or advice or information or whatever. And when I get to go out there, whether I'm solo or I'm with my kids, it's like I don't have to respond to anything. And it is so nice. I can give my kids 100% of my attention. And I try very hard to do that at home, but the reality of the world that we
Right.
live in, that's just not always possible. So out there, I can give that to them all the time. And I always just like break a little bit inside when I start coming back towards,
Yeah,
civilization, and my phone starts blowing up, and I'm like, oh, can I just go back?
right, exactly. I agree. I think South Dakota is a fabulous place for families to explore, and it's kind of one of those hidden states a little bit. It doesn't quite get the attention as some of the coast or New England or other areas. How many days do you think a family could spend exploring South Dakota?
Oh my gosh. I mean, I have been backpacking just myself. I have been backpacking in South Dakota like consistently since 2019. And I was kind of figuring up how many miles I've hiked here just in South Dakota. And it's probably around 200 and 250 miles. And I haven't even touched a lot of what is out there. So, and I definitely haven't stayed at all the campgrounds. And there's a lot of campgrounds that have a lot of fun things to do. They have, activities. They have a lot of hiking trails around them. We have horseback riding.
Oh,
There's just so much to do here. And I do agree that South Dakota is kind of that hidden gem as far as outdoor activities. So a family could easily come out here for a week or two and not run out of things to do. Because there's also a lot of touristy things that you can do as well. There's reptile gardens and there's bear country and, all these caves and experiences like that. But if you were just going to strictly like go to the lakes, go kayaking, go paddle, take a paddle boat, go canoeing, go fishing, whatever, there is so much to do out here. That you really don't have to tap into a lot of those touristy type places if you strictly just want the outdoor experience.
right. And I also think there's a lot of different kind of like nature settings. There's the forest, and then you've kind of got the Badlands, and so there's different just nature type landscapes that vary.
Yeah, exactly. I have not got bored. There are times, and if people, find me on some of my social media, they can see pictures from that are just crazy granite formations, absolutely gorgeous. There's lush forest. You have tons of lakes and ponds out there, tons of creeks and streams. Um, Also, I mean, on one trail alone, I have walked through granite peaks and formations and stuff, through a forest trail, across little bridges, through a cow pasture, all in one
Wow.
trail. So it's like you get such a variety that, you're just really not going to get bored. If you have a true appreciation for the environment around you, you're not going to run out of things to look at. And there's been times that I've taken the same trail. Well, for example, the one that I took my kids on, which is Spring Creek Flume Loop trail, that was the third time I'd taken that trail. And my boys are the ones that found this little cubby hole pond thing that I had walked by
Oh,
two
wow.
other times and I didn't even notice it was there. And we spent over an hour just playing in that water, exploring that area. And so, I mean, every time I've even repeated a trail, I find new things about it. So, I mean, that's just the cool thing about going out there, especially if you're going to go out there at different times of the year, because it changes so much.
Yeah, that's another thing I was just thinking of. And you have areas of dark sky too. I think you get away from the lights just to observe the night sky. I don't know. I've been hearing reports of the northern lights the last few days, and I'm sure they've been areas of South Dakota. If it was clear, you could probably have witnessed that.
Yeah, that night I was like internally fighting because I was working with my 13-year-old on homework. My 8-year-old's in bed, so I couldn't just drive north of town and watch. But yeah, I have countless friends that took some of the most amazing pictures just with their cell phones.
Oh,
Out in the Black Hills is the Badlands, and that doesn't have the trees. If you don't know what the Badlands are, definitely look them up. But some of those pictures of the Northern Lights over the Badlands I mean, it's just mind blowing. It doesn't even seem real that that could be here, but it's gorgeous. And, that's a perfect place to go out and just explore on one of those trips out here.
yeah, I think so too. And I think we're in the midst of a really active year for solar flares and activity. So when you start seeing the pictures that people are getting with their cell phones now, I mean, it's just mind blowing the colors. And you don't have to go to Iceland or Alaska. It's dipping down. You just have to be aware and be out there. I think seeing a few times too, when I get away from the city, just observing the sky, we forget how much we can see of the sky when we're away from the lights.
Yeah, I think so too. We're really blessed out here with most of South Dakota being very rural. So I can go 2 blocks over and there's hardly any town lights. And so we can see the sky pretty much all the time here. And I kind of remind my boys sometimes, like, how blessed we are to be able to sit here over this lake,
Yeah.
sitting in the middle of pine trees on a couple logs with our dog, and just watching the sun go down and seeing all those colors change. And then all of a sudden, yeah, looking up and seeing stars. And I always remind them, because this has been their life forever, but I'm always like, you guys, like, this is not what everyone else gets to experience. This is an amazing opportunity to see things that some people just never get to.
Right, exactly. So what are some tips for budget travel? I think this year too, with everything's getting more expensive, and oftentimes, families do think like, oh, it's so expensive to take time away. But I don't know. I've been thankful that my parents too, we were always living next to the, next to, counting pennies and saving up and not maybe getting as many birthday gifts, but to take a little weekend away just is worth it so much. So what are some tips you have?
I agree. So, one thing that I do leading up to our camping season, because that is our biggest thing that we get excited about, is so you kind of brought it up, birthday gifts. I don't do a lot for my kids on birthday or Christmas. I decided shortly after my divorce that experiences were going to be my main focus. And so we really prioritize time together, time with my older two sons, and time outside. So the great thing about camping is it is fairly cheap. Once you have your stuff, it is fairly cheap. So I can spend 35 to 40 bucks on a campsite, and way cheaper than staying in a hotel room.
Oh yeah.
I learned how to prepare food over an open fire, which is super awesome when you don't have a burn ban, which we should be good this year in South Dakota. We've had enough blizzards. I think we're okay. So I did just familiarize myself with, learning how to cook over an open fire. I have cast iron skillets. You can get those at even Walmart.
Oh
Um,
yes.
and I think a lot of secondhand places you can usually find cast iron too. So just kind of take the time to learn how to do that. And because you can make so many meals, and there's actual cookbooks out there how to make easy camping meals. So I would just take the time to learn some of those experiences. You don't need a big fancy grill. By the time I load up all the stuff that I already have anyway, I wouldn't have room for a grill. Um,
Right. Oh, that's so true.
if you have access, well, and even on Facebook, there's a lot of great secondhand camping sites, things like that. Look at the end of the winter season or the summer season for deals on tents. Menards, Walmart even has some pretty decent tents. You don't have to spend a fortune on them. The one thing I will say is invest in waterproofing spray. Even if the tent says it's waterproof, just grab a can and spray it down, because my kids laugh about how good we are at getting caught in rain showers.
Oh
And
no.
so it's really nice having an extra waterproof tent.
Yes. Oh, definitely.
Right. And Walmart, Menards, they also have, really decent sleeping bags. Unless you're going to be getting really serious and going out there where it's 20 degrees or 0 degrees, you can just get a regular sleeping bag from Walmart if you're doing camping. This year, when we dive into the actual backpacking world, I'm going to probably have to get some more squishable, packable sleeping bags for my kiddos, just save on weight for them. My sleeping bag's horribly heavy. It's 5 pounds, but I don't care. I love it. But I don't want that for my kids. So, but if you're just doing camping, you're going out there, you're driving to where you're going to be sleeping, it's fine to go to Walmart or Menards or whatever type of home goods store that you have and just get what they have on hand. It does not have to be crazy. We
Right.
also bring a lot of extra blankets just in case. I mean, being cold is no fun. Um, Again, a lot of those are just old blankets that we've had forever. Trying to think what else. Everything I do is so cheap, but I realize that a lot of people don't think that way.
No, I totally think that way. I always tell people too. Look at the secondhand stores too, because it's amazing to me sometimes what shows up there. People literally get things, unfortunately, if they're moving, things like camping equipment may not have gotten used that much. And if you just look it over good, you can get some great stuff even at the local thrift stores.
Right. My 8-year-old's backpacking backpack that I just bought him, I got off of eBay. It was used. But it
I
was
love
only like,
eBay.
yeah, I know. It was only 25 bucks, and it's perfect size for him, because everything that I was finding on Amazon was just so crazy expensive. And I'm like, okay, he's 8 and he's growing like crazy. I'm not spending $80 to $120 on this ridiculous backpack that he's not going to be able to use in a few years. So I've also seen that Walmart runnings, we have runnings, I don't know if other places do, but places like that have decent backpacks as well. So if you are going to have your kids like, oh, I don't want them to take their expensive luggage,
Right.
just grab a cheap backpack and take that along. um yeah, we just keep things so simple. You can get firewood pretty cheaply at a lot of convenience stores. We do that a lot if we don't have a bunch on hand that we've gotten from people. Um, we just keep things simple.
No, I think that's important. Just like you mentioned, learn how to cook over an open fire. I think it's the experience is so incredible. And the food is actually, if you've had something cooked in an iron skillet, it's so good. So
It is. My kids get so excited when we when we're getting out there. In fact, when I told them we were going backpacking, my youngest is like, well, do we still get sausage and hash browns? And I'm like, buddy, I am not carrying my cast iron skillets out there. So no, not that trip. We are not
yeah,
doing
exactly. If you want to lug the cast iron, I mean, the skillet alone's probably 5 to 8 pounds.
exactly. So I think, just don't get too caught up in gizmos and gadgets. I actually have one item that I will send you a link to that I do highly recommend on Amazon. And it is an inflatable, collapsible, solar powered lantern.
Oh,
And
wow.
this thing, absolutely love it. Not only is it phenomenal because it packs very small, I take it everywhere, I take it backpacking and camping, but it also has a charging cord. So you can, if you got in a pinch, you could charge your phone or something with it. So I will
Yeah,
send
let's,
you a link
yeah.
because that thing is worth, I think it's only like 25 or 30 bucks, but honestly, I would pay 40 for it. Um, I actually left mine at the last campsite that we stayed at, and I think I cried, but
Oh, yeah, I would too.
definitely getting another one. Other than that, we just don't take much. I mean, we take our sleeping stuff, take extra socks just in case your kids' socks get wet. Make sure you have a pair of shoes. Again, back to getting caught in rain. We did do the old fashioned wrap your socks in plastic bags
Oh, yeah.
on our last day because all the shoes were soaked. They only had
Oh,
one dry pair of socks. And so I was like, well, until we get home, we're wrapping your feet in, the socks in
yeah.
plastic bags. So that's probably the only thing I would bring extra of.
Yeah, and the extra plastic bags, you can now always have something to put in the plastic bags, whether it's
Right.
dirty clothes, something gets wet, right? And that
Yeah.
waterproofing spray too, I always recommend, like if you have a pair of hiking boots, I'm always putting a new coat of the waterproof spray on. Even if the boots say they're waterproof, it just helps. It's another layer. Try to keep your feet dry.
Yes, absolutely.
And
Yeah.
eBay is a great place even for finding like good hiking boots. Do some research maybe online or go try the shoes or boots on at a store and walk around, see which ones fit. But then honestly, I've gotten hiking boots like a third of the price on eBay.
Exactly.
So they're
Yeah.
last year's colors. Nobody's going to care that there's last year's colors.
Right. If you're doing it right and you get dirty enough, no one's gonna be able to tell anyway.
Yeah, exactly. And you can probably find better colors because, who cares what color? Go online and find it. Yeah, eBay's my friend. I'm a big proponent of eBay. I mean, and Walmart, they do have a lot of good deals that if you know when to look and just look through the sales and
Yeah. Yeah. And like I said, I mean, we don't even have inflatable pads yet. I do because I'm old, just saying it. And I sleep like a rotisserie chicken, so I love my inflatable pad, but we are hoping to upgrade on the boys. But honestly, what we're using right now, plus they're super tiny, is we have these, $8 yoga mats. So if you want to have a little bit of cushion, but you don't want to break the bank with, a mat yet, just try a yoga mat. They are not that expensive, super easy to roll them up. They have so many purposes. I know we were completely soaked one day. Our picnic table was soaked, whatever. And I just rolled it out and set it on the table or on the seat of the picnic table. And that's where we had a dry place to sit. So
right. Oh, that's smart. Yeah.
you're helpful.
Right. Yeah. Oh, good stuff. Lots of good stuff. So if people want to reach out to you and ask you some more questions about camping or some of these great recipes and whatnot. Where should they find you, Mary Beth?
So I do have a Facebook. It is Mary Beth Holsworth, Holz as in zebra, Warth. You can shoot me a message, and I'm always happy to talk about it. I do have an Instagram that I'm trying to be a little more active on. It's long. It's a long word, but it's Lizzie, common spelling, LAS as in Sam, AIR, F as in Frank, HIONA. And that's on Instagram. And then I have a YouTube that does have some of my hiking vlogs on it, a little bit of other stuff with like my coffee business. That's Mary Beth Holsworth 9262. And then I have a lot of camping, hiking, whatever random fun on my TikTok, which is another crazy one, thanks to my kids. Lizzie, common spelling, McShizzy, MCSHIZZY.
Oh, that's great. I love that. That they've gotten you onto TikTok with ideas and fun and yeah, and
Yeah.
camping should be fun. Getting outside should be fun. And I don't think I love how you just made it super accessible. Just I encourage everyone to just get out there and try it. And it's the memories that you make. Honestly, that's what I think back on my childhood. I don't remember half the gifts I got, but the trip where we're splitting the malt in South Dakota that was so huge. My dad ended up having to eat it all. I mean, those are the memories that stick with me now, 30 years later. I mean, so it's really
And
something
I
to be
think one
said.
thing when I hear people talk about bad camping experiences, that don't involve maybe your tent fell in from torrential rain or something. So one thing that I think parents we typically stress out because we feel like we have to plan so much. And that is the one time that I try not to plan anything because I have to plan because of my work, because of, just various things. Like I have to plan so many hours of every single day, and there's just no room for spontaneity until we get out camping. So even though like we may plan on going on this hike or whatever, or I want to take them to this lake, if there is a moment where my kids just are having more fun doing this one thing than maybe what I thought we could do, you got to let it go. And there's times that just having fun and exploring around your campground with just those little things, your kids are going to value so much more than trying to pack all this stuff into a short amount of time. You're stressed because you're not staying on top of a time schedule. They're stressed because you're stressed and they feed off of us. Like, just go out there and enjoy all those little things. We have more fun collecting rocks than we do anything else. So just relax. Like, don't try to plan everything out. I think that's the most important thing. Because like you said, that's the stuff that sticks with kids.
Yeah. Great words to end on, Mary Beth. Thank you so much for your time. This was a lot of fun. I'm going to go check out your Instagram now.
Yeah,
And
well,
we'll
thank
drop a
you.
bunch of the notes in the chat section and write it up so you can check out her photos as well. I'm excited to see them. Thanks, Mary
Yeah,
Beth.
thank you.